Hi, I'm Greg Braxton with the Los Angeles Times. ABC's anthology series American Crime has been rightfully applauded for tackling edgy and provocative subject matter that has rarely been seen in network television. Its writing, its performances, its directing, everything about the series is top-notch, particularly the acting. Felicity Huffman delivered a revelatory performance during the show's first season as a bitter divorced mother whose racial prejudices are exposed when minorities are targeted and accused of murdering her grown son during a home invasion. Last season, Felicity delivered another award-worthy performance as Leslie Hanlon, the driven, determined headmistress of an elite school who goes to war with a mother who has accused members of the elite of the basketball team at the school of raping her son during a drunken party. And I'm so honored and pleased to be talking with Felicity.
I'm so happy to be here. I love talking to you. That was so articulate. You wrapped it up so well.
It's
a skill. I understand. It's a skill.
So skill. Particularly now, what's going on today in the world, or particularly in our nation with the issues, it just seems like American Crime just almost has a rip from the headlines quality and aesthetic about it. Is that surprising to you, or how do you feel about where this series is in terms of what's going on in our country today?
I think it speaks a lot to John Ridley and Michael McDonald sort of having their fingers on the pulse of what's going on in America. And I think that happens sometimes. It's kind of a gift from the gods with art, that you kind of channel the zeitgeist. I think John Ridley is interested in investigating areas in a way and from a point of view that hasn't been done before. With the first season, in terms of racism and bigotry, you know, unfortunately that's cyclical in this country. So on one hand, you could take American Crime Season 1 and say, oh, it was ripped from the headlines. And on another hand, you could say, oh my God, it was prescient, because unfortunately things keep coming around and happening. The second season, which as you said has to do, which I think is somewhat easier to watch because it's more personal to people, the second season, it has to do with education and family and community and social strata. That is something that was, you know, at the beginning of the season 2 when they were talking about putting it in a sort of elite school, has to do with education too. The rape was going to be male to female. And then as they were working on it, they said, hang on, what about if it's male to male? And I think just in the writer's room, not only the personal experiences, but I think the prejudices that came up, you know, much like Regina King's character, was like, boys don't do that to other boys. And I think that was the spark that they went, oh, well, then this needs to get investigated. And in terms of it being reflective of society, that's unfortunate but true.
How do you, I mean, the fact that you're involved with this project, how does it impact you personally? How does being involved with this impact you?
Well, in the first season of American Crime, it impacted me because I didn't know how to talk about racism. I don't know that a lot of people know how to talk about it. I think we are all affected by it or carry it around, whether consciously or unconsciously. And certainly playing someone who has ingrained bigotry, but from her point of view is not a racist, made me look at personally my own unconscious prejudices. And I think how the second season affected me was that point of view of my character, Leslie Graham, is in charge of a very fancy, very rich school. But I think she could run a Fortune 500 company, and I think she'd be successful no matter where you put her. And she is a true politician. And what I learned from that was I have grown up kind of sneering at politicians. It almost feels like it almost feels a pejorative. Oh, he's such a politician. But I think I've said this to you before, it's not like we look at doctors and go, oh, they're such a doctor, or a lawyer, oh my God, they're so lawyerly. But for politicians, for some reason, we do that, and she is a politician in the best sense. And that made me look at, again, my own prejudices, which is she figures out what the common good could be, and she compromises and moves forward in what she believes would be the best way. So I guess I had to look at assumptions that were unconscious for me and re-examine them.
What other research did you do? Like, how do you get in the head of a person like this, since it's so alien from what you're familiar with?
I have several friends who are educators and very good politicians in their small sphere, even if it's just the school board. And so I watched how they did it and saw if they were charming. And I also, when I was talking to John Ridley, I said, so is she sort of the best part of Bill Clinton? I don't know. I've never met Bill Clinton, but my husband has. And he said, he's just so charming and right there and wins you over, and he knows all the work. He'd be like, oh, Greg, I've read everything you've ever written. I really loved that piece 10 years ago.
Makes you feel like you're the only person in the world.
Yes, you have the spotlights on you. And then I went around to LA, and and I looked online, and I read different, I did a bunch of research looking for women who were heads of private schools, what they looked like, how they comported themselves, how they worked the room, how they looked out for their students, what their overall objective was, and I just went from there.
What surprised you most about the way that those women act, and what did you incorporate about their missions and demeanors into your performance?
I don't know what surprised me. Well, okay, here's what surprised me. They all wore pearls for some reason. The majority of them had dark hair. And I guess I'll tell you what surprised me in playing the role. I feel like Leslie Graham was really looking out for the common good. And everyone took a position on her, not just in the filming of it, not just the other characters who were in conflict with her, but even, the costumer, we'd be trying on stuff and she'd go, oh, your Leslie Graham was such a bitch. And I went, hang on, I'm sorry, can I say that? And I said, hang on, I've got to play this character, so just a second. And I don't know if it was because she was a woman and she was in power, but instinctively people didn't trust her. And I wonder if that's because you combine a woman with a great deal of power, and for some reason it feels like shifting sand to people. They don't trust them. And I wonder if that's reflected right now in the politics and in the elections that are going on.
Now, you made a decision to change your own appearance. In fact, you were unrecognizable from what we're familiar with you doing before. And so what was behind all of that, and how did that sort of empower your performance?
Well, what I tried to do with both years of American Crime is give the audience the opportunity to sort of cleanse their palate from the character I had before. Whether it was Lynette in Desperate Housewives, I didn't want them to go, oh, there's Lynette playing a heart-sick mother, or there's Lynette playing the head of a school. I also didn't want to blend Barb and Leslie Graham. So some of that was to give the audience the distance so they could see the character whole and against a wide sky. And with Leslie Graham in particular, there were two things. With Barb Hanlon, I wanted a character who flew under the radar. She didn't want to be noticed. She didn't want to be noticed for wearing something, that wasn't appropriate. She didn't want to be noticed for being too fancy. She just wanted to fly under the radar. And with Leslie Graham, I wanted someone, I didn't know if I could do this, but I wanted someone that you'd walk in and women would go, oh, I love that skirt, I wish I could have that skirt. Or I wanted men to go, oh, you're so nice, I'd like to talk to you. I wanted her to be that sort of appealing, charismatic person, and that's what I was trying to go for with the look. And I wanted that shape. I mean, I can't tell you, I wore so many Spanx and like corsets. I mean, I was backstage with people like pulling me in the corset because I'm straight and I wanted her to go like that. Thank you, Spanx.
How does it make you feel, though? I mean, when you're her, how do you feel? How does changing that appearance make you feel?
It made me feel. It shifted how I approach people, because with the exterior of put together but not too put together and appealing, hopefully, and hopefully attractive, what I had to do was, I don't know how to say this, it made me frightened because Leslie Graham had to come at people, but in a very, hopefully, charming and appealing way. And I personally don't feel brave that way. You know, I'm sort of like, well, I'm sure you're not going to want to talk to me, and don't worry, you can look somewhere else. But she comes in and goes, no, look at me. No, come on, let's talk. Mm-hmm. Let's engage. So it did both. It made me feel both frightened, and it made me feel like I had a bridge to hopefully go across that chasm of fear.
Both of these characters, both of these women that you played, are doing the best that they can. They're living in their world. They're doing the best that they can, but they both could be defined as having a real dark side.
Yeah.
Getting into the darkness of a character, but yet still being able to get into their humanity. Do you, as an actress, have to like these people in some way? Do you have to like these characters, or how does it work?
I do have to like them. I find if I can't endorse the character personally, then I'm judging them while I'm playing them, and you can't judge them while you play them. So yes, it wasn't difficult with Leslie Graham in the second season. It was difficult in the first season with Barb Hanlon. And the way I could get behind Barb is she is being a good mother. She's trying to be a good mother. I know it comes out badly, but that's her objective.
Did it make you uncomfortable saying some of the things
that Barb said?
Yes.
Oh my God, I kept looking at the script and I would go, John, really? First of all, I don't think people talk like this. And he said, yes, people talk like this. And this was at the beginning of the series. And so I went online to start to go, wait a second, this doesn't exist in the world. And indeed, and unfortunately, it exists in the world. And I said, okay, so people do talk like that. Do I have to talk like that? And he said, yeah, you do. And yet when you talk to John, he would say with Barb, I don't know how he says this, but he does. He says she's not a racist. I don't know. I think from her point of view, she's a realist. So yeah.
One of the things that I've approached you about before is that in the first season, you played a mother who was desperately fighting for her son to get justice. In the second season, you're fighting against a mother who is desperately trying to get her son justice. So that I always love that flip-flop of what John created for you to do, and
yes,
and I like the way that you sort of brought that out. So discuss just sort of doing that flip-flop.
Yeah, that was wonderful of John, wasn't it? He did that so well. He kind of does everything well. Well, it was so interesting because my first scene, I mean, Lily Taylor, who brilliantly plays the mother you're speaking of in the second season, we acted together in the first season, and she was sort of my advocate and my helper. And I remember walking into the first scene with Lily where I come in and she's sitting in the room and she says, something's happened to my son. And I was Lily is such a wonderful actor that I came into the room in character going, I'm going to handle it, I'm going to solve this, this is going to be off the docket in probably about 10 minutes. We'll get down to it. And I walked in the scene, and Lily took it in a direction I didn't expect. And I guess as a character, I went, oh no, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a long ride. And that was so fascinating because it was sort of the character speaking and not me as it was just going, oh, this is not going to go away easy because this mother is as dedicated to justice for her son as my character was last year.
What was the most challenging aspect of Leslie and getting into her?
The most challenging aspect of getting into Leslie Graham was I felt like there was a whole arsenal of arguments that Leslie Graham could have used to both the school board and the parents, and maybe as a politician she wasn't allowed to, and John didn't write those lines for me. And I kept coming to him and saying, but wait, why doesn't she say, I'm the only person that's told the truth. I have not lied this entire time. Everyone else, and he wouldn't give me those lines. So the most challenging thing was kind of feeling as if I was being condemned and judged without a full hearing, without being able to stand up and advocate for myself. So that I kept, and maybe that's the character, I kept finding going, wait, this isn't right. That was challenging.
How do you think you'd feel meeting a Leslie? Well, we've discussed this. You're a mother.
Yeah.
If your children were going to a school where Leslie was the headmistress, how do you think you'd feel about her?
I know Leslie is formidable, isn't she?
Right.
It's so interesting for me to watch it and go, oh, she is, because I didn't feel that way playing it. But if my daughters went to a school where Leslie Graham was the headmaster, well, one, I'd be glad because I think the school would be in good hands. And two, I wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of her. And I think it would be difficult because you can see she has the best wishes of the institution because that's what she's there to do, which might not coincide with the best wishes for your child.
Right.
I'd want her as a ally.
But do you think you would personally
like her?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on how well I charmed people.
And how your children were doing in the school, maybe.
Yes, that's very true. I think if my children were an addition to the school, then yes, I think I would like Leslie Graham. And if my children somehow reflected badly on the school, I think we would have a problem.
What is American Crime is just so it's not background TV. It's television that you have to really pay attention to, and it's really important to just sort of key in on everything. What is the aesthetic like on set? Because I can imagine that it's not a light set, or is it a light set? Or and also the fact that it's a repertory company, so you all know each other playing different roles. So what is being on the set like?
It's interesting. I think an aesthetic got established the first season, at least when I was working, which is it's very quiet, it's very focused. Even in the second season, there's sometimes in sets there's a lot of joking around because there's a lot of downtime.
Sure.
But there wasn't. Everyone sits very quietly. Everyone comes 100% prepared. It's very direct, and everyone gives 110%. So it's the most professional, focused set I've ever worked on.
Really?
Yeah, which is wonderful.
And also you have these very seasoned veterans, many who have been in the business for years, along with young people or other actors who are just entering in, and the casting is tremendous because these performers are going toe to toe with you.
Yeah.
And they're not giving any ground. What is that like?
Oh my God, it's, first of all, it's super surprising, and then it's just such a pleasure, particularly the second season, because there are so many young actors. And with Connor Jessup and Joey Polari, I mean, I kept sitting across from these kids going, how do they know how to do that? How are they so good? I mean, they were great to play with, and it's such a pleasure. And then you're right, you know, the people who have been around a while. I remember I got to do, I think it was only one scene with Hope Davis. And we were friendly before, and I've admired her for a long time. And we started the scene, and again, it was the same thing with Lily. I went, oh, crikey, you're really good. Oh, okay, I really have to be good too. Oh, we're really playing. Oh, okay, you're bringing your A game, aren't you? But I felt that same way with the young actors. That I thought they were just fantastic.
Do you feel, is there a difference for you in doing more lighter fare like Desperate Housewives and this, which is just so deep and dramatic?
I really was glad it was a limited series, to tell you the truth. I didn't know if I could play Barb for more episodes than I had to, and I have to say, when a series ends with John, you go, oh my God, that was amazing. I'm just going to put it down right now because it's heavy to carry around, and you are working, you know, 200% for that entire span of time, that 4 months or whatever it is. So yes, there is a difference. I mean, I would love to do something lighthearted and wacky and a comedy next, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen. One other thing is that I've always noticed about the series is the uncompromising visual aesthetic, is that the camera is right there in your face, and there's no place to hide. There's no place for anyone. Your performance has to be just top notch. And what is that like, dealing with that and knowing that, you know, you can't be off 1 degree or it's going to be obvious and noticeable?
Yeah. Tim Hutton and I talked about that the first season. We went, you know, there's no off stage here. Everything's in. And the visual, John Ridley, who of course sets the visual tone, talks really intelligently about it. He said, you know, the first episode was about families breaking apart. And so there was a lot of close-in camera work. And the second, just to connect people, and the second season was about families coming together to try and solve things, whether it's, you know, Regina's family or Joey's family. And so the camera could be a little bit farther back because the actors were connecting as opposed to breaking apart. But in terms of everything being on, yeah, I figured that out in the pilot when John does these big oneers. And so it's like a play. You know, it's not on you, and I sort of get to like sit back. It's like a play, you're always on. And I told you this story, but I finally went, wait, you're doing this scene in a oneer? And he said, yeah. And I said, don't you want like a shot of the grass or the sky or the birds just to cut away from? And he said, no, it's just going to be on you and Tim. And I said, okay, well, what if I'm bad? And there was a pause, and he looked at me and he went, don't be bad. I went, oh, okay.
During the recent upfront, when it was announced that American Crime was coming back, there was this huge applause.
There was?
Huge applause. It was probably the biggest
no way!
reception because I think people who know this show and respect this show really feel that it's essential.
You guys, that makes me so happy.
So it's really great. Have you gotten any sort of indication about your involvement next season?
I am involved.
You are
I'm
involved?
very pleased. I know it's only 8 episodes. At least that's what I understand. Is that what they said there?
They didn't say anything,
okay.
Just that it's coming back.
I think it's only 8 episodes. And I believe we're shooting in Los Angeles and not Austin.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you what I think it's about. Has John been vocal about it?
No, and
okay,
you don't,
then I better not.
You don't have to. But are we going to see another Dark Felicity?
I did say to John, I was like, could we do a musical or something? Could we do John Ridley's version of Glee? you know, Barb with an exclamation mark. Barb goes to Broadway.
Yeah.
I would think that it's going to be dark, and I would think that it's an issue that affects us, affects our society in a darker way.
Do people on the street react to you differently now than they did when you were on Desperate Housewives?
Well, I don't really get recognized. Desperate Housewives was, you know, a phenom. It was like lightning in a bottle. So, although the other ladies did get recognized a lot more than I did. So yes, I get recognized a lot less, and I get recognized with a lot less enthusiasm, you know. But it's a very particular audience that watches American Crime, and if they watch it, they love it. So I will get compliments on the show, but I think my characters so far have been hard to swallow.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering.
Which makes me sad, but there it is.
But they're just so, your performance is so meticulous and so wonderful. And
That's so nice.
I look forward to seeing
Thank you.
What new turns you're going to take in the next season.
I don't know. We'll see what new depths I can plumb.
New depths. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I love talking to you.
Be honored with Felicity Huffman today. For more information about American Crime and other shows, please go to latimes.com. Thank you for tuning in.